Hey, what's going on everyone? So in today's video, I kind of wanted to do things a little bit differently. Usually I've got like something to teach you guys, some knowledge to share, but in today's video, I kind of wanted to have more of an open-ended discussion on what I would consider, the hard truths when it comes to the credit card points, the credit card game, whatever you want to call it. I think when people first start out with the credit cards, there are a lot of different ideas and different possibilities floating around out there, as in which credit cards you could get or which trips you could take, and it all seems like a lot of fun, like it's really attractive, right? But there's also some important things that everybody should really be aware of about the credit cards, about the points, that I think doesn't get enough attention from people who talk about this stuff. So that's sort of what we're going to talk about today. But first, let's roll the intro. So we're just going to kind of loosely go through some hard truths that I think everybody should hear when they're first starting out with miles and points. I've written about this on the website before, and I'm just going to kind of build on that and meander through my ideas, if you will. So I think the first hard truth, it's kind of obvious, right? It's the fact that credit cards are an essential part of the points game, as it were, here in North America. You can't really earn the huge amounts of points without at least getting and managing a few credit cards at a time. And so you really do need to be very financially literate in order to succeed. There's really no two ways around this. You really have to be able to stay on top of all your credit card bills, manage your spending, and resist the temptation to spend more money if you have access to so many credit cards. You need to have the organizational skills to be able to stay on top of all the different credit cards you have, especially if you have more than, let's say, 10 or 12, if you want to play the game to a very high level. And you've got to be able to keep track of everything there is to a credit card, right? Paying off your bills on time and in full, which date that you have to pay the bill by, whether or not you've met the minimum spending requirements and which date you have to meet that spending requirement by. You've got to be able to stay on top of all of this, whether it's, all kept up here in your head or you've got a spreadsheet to keep track of everything. You can't really miss a beat in this game we play. So those are some of my thoughts on the financial literacy side. I think everybody who gets into the credit card game needs to, at least a little bit, be that kind of person who wants to maximize their finances, who wants to do the best for themselves given what they've got. Now, here's another hard truth that I think is somewhat related to this, but the credit card game is very much a pay-to-play environment. And what I mean by that is that it really takes a certain willingness to spend at least a little bit of money, right? A not insignificant chunk of money in order to get even more value out of the game. If there were one central concept to the whole world of credit card points, right? One concept that was absolutely vital, that would be the idea of value, right? You want to spend as little money as possible to get as much value back as possible. And I think a lot of people are attracted to getting the credit cards and using the points because of this idea of, getting expensive stuff, business class and first class flights, amazing hotel stays for as little money as possible. But that as little money as possible still got to be some money. The way I usually explain it to people is that, you could spend $0 out of pocket and get $1,000 in value from credit card points. Or you could spend $1,000 out of pocket and get $10,000 in value from credit card points. So there's that kind of disparity between the fact that if you're willing to spend a little bit of money, then that goes a long way towards getting a huge return on the other side. To give you a concrete example, I know when a lot of people start out with credit card points, they're really only interested in the credit card offers that have first year free or no annual fee, right? Because they don't want to spend any money out of pocket when earning these points. And I know that because I was the same way when I first started out, right? I would get, the low-key American Express cards and then some of the TD and CIBC Aeroplan cards that had the first year fee promotion at the time. And I would be happy with that because I was earning a nice amount of points while spending $0 out of pocket. And it's really a change in mindset that eventually occurs because of the fact that there's only so many no-fee credit cards out there with, a limited chunk of bonuses on each card. If you really want the huge bonuses, then you're gonna have to start paying some annual fees in exchange for those bonuses. There's also other examples, like if we think about some of the award programs out there, like Alaska Airlines or Hilton Honors, there are ways to earn points really cheaply in these programs, like through the credit cards, but those credit card sign-up bonuses, at least in Canada, you can only get once every 3 months maybe, and in the US, they're once in a lifetime. So you can get them, and then after that, you're kind of done. After you've gotten the bonus, the best way to earn points quickly in these programs is probably to buy them straight from the program when they're having a bonus event. But as long as you're still redeeming for the best sweet spots in these programs, then you're still getting insane value, right? Because you could have spent $500 to $1,000 buying these points, but if you're redeeming them for stuff that's worth $5,000 to $10,000, then it's worth it. So what I'm trying to say here is that at the high level, once you're done with all the no-fee credit card offers out there, then the game is very much pay to play, and you gotta be comfortable with that. All right, the next hard truth that I wanted to mention, and this is probably the most important one, is that success in the credit card game does not come without a significant chunk of time, energy, and flexibility. The bloggers, right? The bloggers, the Instagrammers, the content creators, people like me who talk about this stuff, we make it look easy, right? We make it look like business class and first class is easily within reach. And speaking candidly here, maybe it's because we do find it easy because we've been doing it ourselves for a very long time, or maybe it's because business and first class is very attractive, right? It brings a lot of people interested into the game, into what we do. But in reality, okay, to go from a beginner who's just getting your first credit card to an advanced practitioner who's booking first class trips around the world at the drop of a hat is a very, very, very long journey. And it requires hours and hours of time and concerted energy over a long, consistent period of time as well, studying which credit cards to get, researching what are the best redemptions, finding out other people's experiences, and then actually doing it for yourself. I kind of get the feeling that at any given moment, the majority of people who are interested in the credit card game have never actually redeemed their points for a major trip yet. I feel like most people who are interested are actually in the earning phase, right? Getting started with their first few credit cards, learning how the credit system works, putting together a strategy for earning points. And let me tell you, that's the easy part, okay? Anybody with, a few brain cells can figure out this credit card offer is better than this credit card offer. Let's apply for this one. It's really once you've earned the points and you're starting to redeem them for a trip that the real learning curve begins, because it requires a complete change in the way you usually think about booking trips and booking travel. That's where this final notion of flexibility comes in, right? The more flexible you are with regards to where you want to go, when you want to go, with whom you want to go, then the higher your chances of actually being able to use your points for a trip. If you're one of the people who sends me emails who are like, hey Ricky, I'm looking to bring my family of 4 over to Europe over Christmas break. I realize it's last minute, but I've got, 500,000 points that I'd like to use. Please help. I'm sorry, dude, I can't help you. I can't just magically make the airlines release additional seats and make it possible for you to book this trip. If you want to travel over peak season, you really got to plan well in advance, like 9 to 12 months in advance. And booking big trips 9 to 12 months in advance isn't really something that most people are accustomed to doing, right? Back when I used to work at my big office job, I would book, my big business class trips 9 to 12 months in advance. And then at 3 months in advance, I'd say to my boss, yeah, I kind of need, these 2 weeks off because I've already booked the trip. So yeah, in addition to the time and energy that you must spend researching how to build these trips, it also requires a great deal of flexibility to kind of work these trips around your life schedule. And overall, given the fact that there's such a high degree of time, energy, and flexibility that's required to play this game at a very high level, the reality is that for many of you, you'll only get to sort of the intermediate level and kind of be happy with that. At the intermediate level, You don't have to spend too much of your life focusing on the points and the credit cards, but you're still able to take you and your family on, one or two big trips around the world every year. And I think that's kind of the sweet spot for most people, where they don't have to necessarily invest their whole existence into researching, understanding, networking with other people to raise their game to a much higher level. The way I usually describe it is anyone can become a master of miles and points, but not everyone can, right? Not every single one of you watching this video right now will find it worthwhile enough to invest your time and energy into traveling the world on points. But some of you will see the value in doing so, and you're going to be the ones who are eventually going to manufacture spend 8-figure points earnings per year and take multiple first-class trips around the world. Whereas for the rest of you, you'll take 1 or 2 trips around the world per year, but that's okay too. The next hard truth that I wanted to touch upon briefly is the fact that this whole credit card game rests upon the principle of getting something for nothing. For better or worse, we're all part of a system, here in North America at least, where the credit card companies make huge profits on the interchange fees on every transaction that's swiped on the credit cards. And then they pass on some of these profits back to us consumers in the form of these rewards points. And there's an argument to be made that because the merchants out there have to pay the credit card transaction fees, they build these transaction fees into higher prices in their goods and services. And if you kind of follow this cycle and think about where our credit card rewards are really coming from, where our free round the world trips are really coming from, it kind of seems like, the people who are actually paying for these trips are the people who don't use credit cards, the people who have to pay higher prices for goods and services as a result of the existence of credit cards, but don't actually reap the benefits of credit card points in general. So those would be people who pay for stuff using cash or debit, who for whatever reason don't use credit cards. Maybe they're not financially literate enough, maybe they're not creditworthy enough, or maybe they applied for credit cards and used credit cards but then got themselves into crippling debt. If you think about how the whole system works, it's kind of these people who are already in some of the most precarious positions in society who are losing out even further because they're having their wealth indirectly transferred over to those of us who are savvy enough to maximize our credit card rewards. So when we talk about getting maximum value or getting something for nothing, of course you can never actually get something for nothing, right? You're getting these awesome vacations, awesome trips around the world at a societal cost that might not be evenly distributed across society. You got to think about if you're comfortable with that. And that brings me to my last point, which is this whole credit card game is actually kind of a superficial thing to be doing. It's truly a very first world and a very upper middle class pursuit. And I won't deny that sometimes all the luxury and excess makes me even feel a little bit guilty. I find that, for example, when I'm traveling and I meet other travelers on the road and we're talking about, the flights and hotels, I almost feel like I don't want to bring up the fact that I flew 12 hours in business class on the way here, or that I'm departing in first class, or that I'm staying at the Ritz-Carlton. It just feels kind of over the top and unnecessary a little bit sometimes, but having said that, I can't deny that it's a lot of fun. We can also talk about the environmental impact. Air travel is obviously very necessary, but it pollutes the globe massively, and especially business class and first class, where every seat occupies a huge amount of space. It's terrible for the environment. And yet, I don't have the answers here because if I truly cared about the environmental impact, then I would stop doing what I do, but I haven't stopped. In fact, earlier this year, I flew on the swankiest, largest first-class suite on the Emirates 777 twice from Dubai to Geneva and then back to Dubai for no reason other than to fly it. I didn't even have to go to Geneva. I just booked it back and forth just to be able to try the product. So yeah, I'm kind of guilty on this whole superficiality side of things as well. And I think the upshot here is that, you really got to have some motivation to be playing the credit card game beyond the luxury and the superficial stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, if you've flown business class or first class before, then you'll know that it's a lot of fun. And if you haven't, then you're going to have an amazing experience when you do. But having said that, that kind of luxury lifestyle or whatever, it can't be the only motivation that you have, because take it from somebody who's been there, it wears off very quickly. So you've got to keep that in mind, and you've got to have some other reason that you want to pursue this, whether it's because you want to travel the world extensively, or maybe you want to travel with your family and make some special memories together. Maybe for the parents out there, you want to show your kids the world, you want to expose them to different countries and cultures. There's got to be some kind of external motivation beyond the superficial stuff to really drive you. So I think that just about wraps up all of the hard truths I had for you today. For those of you who are just starting out, I think it's important to hear these things and to absorb them and think about whether or not the credit card game is right for you. I know among those of us who talk about this stuff that we like to make it seem easy, we like to make it seem approachable, we like to make it seem like business class and first class is a snap of the finger away, but really there's a lot more that goes on behind the surface. There's the financial literacy, there's the time and energy that you must spend, there's the flexibility that's required to actually be able to book trips on points successfully, and then there's sort of the ethical stuff where it's like, are you okay with getting something for nothing? And the fact that all of this is actually kind of superficial. So if after all this you're still thinking, I'm good with all of that, I'm still all about the points, then I'll continue to see you around. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the Prince of Travel YouTube channel. Just click the subscribe button below the video and let me know in the comments what you think of the topics that we covered today. What were your reactions to that? And also let me know if you enjoyed this slightly more conversational style of video as well. I'll see you next time. To an advanced practitioner who's, booking first class trips, it's truly a very first world and a very upper middle class thing to be doing.